Hi guys, and welcome back to SwitchUp. Today I've got a very short review for you, and it's of the game Ape Out on the Nintendo Switch. Thank you to our Patreons and all the new ones we've had recently and the new subscribers on the channel. We really appreciate every comment you leave down below. Thank you to the developers for the review copy, and well, to Leo for talking me into this one. Is it worth breaking out? Let's find out. Be warned that this is most certainly not a child's game. I initially sat with my 3-year-old on my lap thinking this is going to be a great time. Only a few minutes into the game and I pushed someone into a wall and they exploded, and the strawberry sauce that ensued meant he couldn't play anymore. The story of Ape Out is a very simplistic one, and as such it definitely doesn't deserve its own section. You play as a trapped primate. Now, as you progress through the story, you do begin to uncover a little bit more about why you are captive to begin with, but overall it's kept quite vague, and that's just fine by me. The gameplay is where this one truly shines. One of a very select few games where gameplay, visuals and audio are synced together perfectly. You control your ape with the left stick, easy enough. With the R button you can smash an enemy, sending them flying and shattering into a wall, and with the L button you can grab them and use them as a human shield. When you do this, they will initially fire off one shot of their weapon, which if timed correctly can connect in just the right way with one of their own. What I loved about the system was how simple it was, but also how much control you felt you had over proceedings. The whole game has a real managed risk and reward system, and there is a real flow to the game. As you're running through the narrow corridors, you may stumble across an enemy. Do you run back into cover, or do you charge, grab them, use them as a human shield, throw them into one of their companions, and then speed off? Or do you decide to flank them entirely, approach from the rear, and send them crashing into each other? There are several different enemy types throughout the game, and they range from your usual shotgun-toting grunts, who have around about a 2-second delay before they'll shoot you, so again, you must decide whether to approach or run, or the more tricky explosive type enemies. This means that when you use them as a human shield, you need to be really careful that another enemy doesn't detonate them by firing just at the right moment. The levels are quite linear. You literally work from left to right, but the route which you take is entirely up to you. I absolutely loved the way you die in this game. When you are killed, the camera pans out, revealing the word died. It just looks wonderful, and it tracks your exact route, so sometimes you really can see how much of a headless chicken you were as you attempted to go from A to B. I mentioned how seamlessly the audio and visuals are tied together with the game experience, and every time you hit an enemy you'll hear a crash of cymbals or a slight jazz riff in the background that just makes the whole thing work so well together. As I mentioned, some enemies are different. There are the bulletproof vest wearing variety, the normal grunts, and later in the game there are more still. While the game starts simply enough, once you've worked your way through a few of the stages, the difficulty really begins to ramp up, with a steady stream of new gameplay mechanics being drip-fed into the experience to keep it interesting. Having said that, I did still find it a touch repetitive at times, particularly on trickier sections like this one where I just could not get through this corridor without dying. And I ended up doing this level probably about 10 to 15 times. Now, while that might just mean that I'm not a very good player, no comments please, it is also a part of the game's design, and the linearity causes bottlenecks such as this where you can't help but find yourself challenged, and you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it was definitely noticeable and worth mentioning. Now, thankfully, the developers seem to have been aware of this repetition creeping into the game. They do begin to drip feed in slightly new mechanics, such as being able to rip off doors and use them as shields. A few stages in, you'll be tearing generators from walls and plunging the entire level into darkness. It was during these sections that the pace of the game changed. It was really a pleasant surprise for this shift in pace, as before that I was generally just charging through a level as fast as I could. All of a sudden I had to slow right down and it became a more stealth-like experience. The torches of guards were the only way I could see where they were, and I enjoyed waiting for them to change their patterns and then rushing past before they even noticed me. Overall for me, the game's simplicity is actually its greatest asset. There is no superfluous content. Controls are exactly what they need to be, which is simple and tight and incredibly responsive. The gameplay itself is also minimalistic, but has, as I mentioned, such a beautiful flow to it. Everything feels within your control and rarely unfair. For me, the controls were on point. They score 19 out of 20, and the gameplay really reminded me of Hotline Miami meets Planet of the Apes in the best possible way, with a touch of jazz flute thrown in for good measure. Gameplay scores 18 out of 20. Now, you've probably gathered already, the audio is absolutely sublime, but it is tied perfectly with the visuals. There's nothing that you see on screen that you don't also hear, and vice versa. Every action you take is resonated with a little musical flair, but also a clash of cymbals or some other on-screen effect. While it's simplistic in its art style, it's a much deeper visual experience than you would expect. There are so many small little throwbacks to visual cues of the past, such as the records and the A and B sides that are used to denote the different stages in the game. There's so much here to really sink your teeth into in terms of visuals and audio, and it's done so masterfully with such a simple technique. Now, I'm certainly no aficionado of jazz music, and I apologize profusely to Gabe because I'm about to butcher your name, but this game was designed, programmed, and the artwork done by Gabe Casillo and Bennett Foddy, and the composer Matt Bott has just done an incredible job. The fact that this is in the Unity engine really shows off what's capable with a minimalistic style, but a wonderful palette of visuals, music, and sound combined. Overall for me, visuals score 18 out of 20, and that lovely audio scores 19 out of 20. Value is going to be the one area of contention with different styles of player. At only around 3 to 4 hours in total, there are other game modes that have you rush through the level as fast as you can with one life, but these aren't necessarily going to bring you back once you've completed the core experience. There are 4 overarching levels, and they take around 45 minutes each, which isn't a great deal. Now, I enjoyed my time with the game, as you can tell, although some may find it a touch repetitive. I really enjoyed the ebb and flow of the combat and just found the whole concept to be really cool. For me though, value is going to suffer due to the very short runtime and the lack of any multiplayer or any lasting appeal. Overall for me, value scores 13 out of 20. So there you have it, just a short one from us this time, and thanks to you Leo, because I only did this review because you asked, and I enjoyed playing the game a lot. Overall, Ape Out was a surprising game. It does bear a few similarities to the titles I've mentioned, but it has an aesthetic and audio palette all of its own. Once again, Devolver Digital have proved that they just pick amazing games. This one scores a SwitchUp score of 87%. Thanks so much to our Patreons who support us every single month. Once again, we've had a couple of new ones. It means the world to us. Thank you to all of you who comment down below, and remember, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!